Today I have a bit of a different video for you. This video is going to be about critique, specifically critiquing your own images. Now, if you post your shots on social media, you probably get a lot of comments like, I love it, nice shot, etc., etc., etc. But that doesn't really help you. And so how do you develop sort of the critical skill set where you can look at your image and say to yourself, what should I have done different in this shot, or what could I have done different in this shot? So in this video, I'm going to show you a bunch of my own images, and I'm going to use my own so I don't offend anybody. And as you watch the, I guess you can call it the critique, please keep in mind that this is just my opinion. That doesn't necessarily make it the right opinion, but it gives you an idea of what I look for when I critique my own photos. So that's what this video is about. Coming up next. So the first image I want to show you is one that I took a bunch of years ago on a very gray and kind of dreary day. It's a short-eared owl. But before I do that, I want to tell you a bit of a, I guess you'd call it a funny story. Some years ago, I had a portfolio review done by a fellow who wasn't a wildlife photographer. And, well, I was a little bit kind of maybe reluctant to have it done because, well, the chap wasn't a wildlife photographer. So I thought, you know, how is this guy going to tell me what's good and bad about my wildlife portfolio? But it actually turned out to be very, very insightful. So this image I'm going to show you in a second, he actually quite liked it. And there's one thing that really bothers me about the image. I'll put it up now and you can probably pick out what it was. So I was discussing the shot with him and he said, oh, here's a shot I really, really like. And I said, yeah, but, and you can probably tell what the but is. Yes, it's the missing wingtip. I clipped it. Unfortunately, I didn't get the whole owl in the shot. His reply to me was, oh, get over it. And it's the one thing that really stands out to me from this review I had done, and I haven't forgotten it to this day. The moral of the story is that what you think is important may not be important at all to the end user. So I'm wondering what you think. Does it kill the shot? Does it make it an average shot? Or do you even care about this missing wingtip? Please put your thoughts down in your comments. But that is the first point I want to make to you is what you think matters may not matter to the end user of your image. Right, so the next shot is obviously a bald eagle, as you can see. There's a couple of comments about this shot. This is, I guess, what you would call the famous bird on a stick. It's a shot I took the day I made a review for the Canon 200 to 800 millimeter lens, and it was another dreary day, as you can see. Now, it's a decent static shot, I think. The wind was coming from behind the eagle, so you can kind of see some of the head feathers are standing up, and as always, it has the intense bald eagle look. They always have this look. But what bugs me about it is the background. The background is completely uninspiring. There really isn't much to say for it. So it's a shot I'm happy with, but I'm certainly not ecstatic about it. It is nice to get a close-up of a bald eagle, and it is also a shot, though, that is very centered. So it is kind of, as you look at it, you look at the bald eagle, but you don't really look at anything else. There's nothing else to explore in the frame. And that's largely because of the way it's composed, with the bald eagle almost in the middle, and also because of the uninspiring background. But speaking of backgrounds, there are times when a boring or plain background, it doesn't matter all that much. And so I just want to show you this example here really, really quickly. Now, this video is about critiquing your own images, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this shot. But when you have a subject that's doing something that is a bit unique, maybe it's a unique angle, maybe it's unique lighting, but the image has something that is quite unique to it, the background doesn't matter as much. And I think this is a decent example of that, with the bald eagle coming straight at, well, it was up in the sky, but straight at the camera pretty much. And in this shot, I think you probably end up looking at the feather detail under the wings, you look up at the screaming eagle, you're looking at the tail feathers, you're looking at many other things. But the last thing you probably look at is the background, or the last thing you probably notice is the background. And in instances like that, a boring or a clear background is okay. And up next we have two great gray owls. It is the mother feeding the chick that had just left the nest, I think a day or two earlier. Now I really like interaction shots, like shots that show some kind of thing happening. And obviously here you have three kind of subjects. You have the two owls and then the unfortunate mouse. Now, if I look at this image, there are a few things that I wish had been done different, or, that afforded a different opportunity. The first thing is the angle. I don't think the angle is that great. I was low, shooting up high. I mean, sometimes you get what you get. That's the nature of wildlife photography, but the angle wasn't great. The other thing is, if you look on the female below her, you can see how the light is coming in from one side and it's kind of illuminating her chest feathers. But it's really, I find it a bit distracting because it draws my attention. Bright areas will often do that. It will pull the viewer away from where the attention should be into a particularly bright area. And it is something perhaps I could tone it down a little bit more, but I have left it as it is. The other thing is the mother also has her eyes closed. Now that may be because she doesn't want the little one to overshoot the mouse and hit her in the eye with the beak. So maybe that's what it is. But I suppose you could argue it maybe conveys a little bit of emotion into the shot. I don't know. I'm kind of torn on this one. It's a rare opportunity to get, so I'm certainly very, very grateful for that. But there are obviously a few things that I wish had been done a little bit different. Here we have a shot from Yellowstone National Park, one of my favorite places on earth for wildlife. And it is a bison mom and her calf, and the calf has come in for some sustenance. I think at best it's probably, well, I'd consider it an average shot. But what I want you to do is imagine for a second that the calf isn't there, because if the calf isn't there, it kind of downgrades the shot even further. Without the calf, basically what you have is you have the bison in the back, sort of like with the head almost out of the frame. You can't see the head of that last bison, and then the butt intersects with the mom bison, so that's no good. And then you have another bison in sort of like the next foreground, if you will, coming into the frame, but there really isn't enough of it. That's another distraction. And then you have the third bison that's kind of below where you see my ugly mug lying down, and that also doesn't really add anything to the image. Now, once you put the calf in there, you actually have something happening in the shot, and that's why I consider it sort of more of a documentary type of image. But without the calf, this would have gone into the delete bin. Up next, we have this little cutie. This is a pudu from Chile in South America. Tiny little animals, cute as anything. And there is a saying in photography, and that is cute sells. And in this case, it was, the little pudu was kind of hiding in a bush, and then it decided to come and peek out. And so the foliage was used to sort of frame the face of the little guy or gal. I'm not sure which it was. But in this case, I don't think it worked really that well. If you look in the bottom right of the image, you can see how the greenery is, well, it's quite bright, and it tends to sort of pull your eye away from the pudu. And sometimes you can use a natural environment to frame your shot. It can work really, really well because it can help focus the viewer in on what it is you're shooting. But if you're not careful, it's going to draw the attention away from your subject. And I think that's what's happening here is because of the brightness of the foliage, because how close it is to the face, it actually doesn't help the image. In fact, it kind of detracts from the image. This next shot is from Churchill in northern Manitoba. It's obviously a polar bear resting on some of the rocks. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to show on YouTube, but as I'm sitting here looking at my monitor, the colors are actually off. So it's too much towards the greens and the color of the polar bear. I'm not sure that is actually the way it's supposed to be. It's looking a little bit rich. Anyway, so I guess you'll just have to take my word for it on this one if it doesn't show that way as you're looking at it on your screen. But the colors are off. And so the reason why I bring this up is that setting the white balance on your image is immensely important, because there's nothing worse than a brilliant shot. You're looking at it and go, wow, that is really fantastic, except for one thing, and that is the colors are way off. So one thing I would implore you to do is make sure that before you dig into the depth of your post-processing is set the right white balance. And this is another reason why you should shoot in RAW as opposed to a JPEG. In a JPEG, you don't have the same latitude in post. So if you mess up the white balance, it's a lot easier. In fact, it's very easy to correct with a RAW image. In this case, I'm okay with the composition. It's kind of using the rule of thirds. There really isn't anything distracting, even though it's snowing heavily. So I'm okay with, I'm going to say I'm okay with almost everything else in the image, but the white balance is the one thing that puts me off. So just make sure that you set the right white balance. And if you don't get it right in camera, which is okay, but make sure you shoot in RAW so you have the most flexibility in post. Well, that takes us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. And as I said in the beginning, please keep in mind that a lot of this stuff is very, very subjective. I'm not sure I've ever taken a perfect image, and I'm okay with that. I think it's the pursuit of the perfect image I really, really enjoy. So with that, I'm going to sign off for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.